All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. This is the Rocky Top Insider postgame show. Ryan Shumpert, Rick Butler, standing here on the court of Little Caesars Arena in Detroit, Michigan, where Tennessee survives and advances past three-seed Creighton into the Elite Eight, only the second in program history for the Tennessee Volunteers. Tennessee defeats Creighton by a score of 82-75. Ryan, a lot of different ways that we could talk about this game, maybe some individual performances, maybe just how the game shook out at different times. But to you, what was your biggest takeaway coming out of this Sweet 16 game?
I think it's just got to be everybody won. I mean, it was Tennessee's team, and we knew Creighton didn't have a ton of depth. We knew they leaned really heavily on three, maybe four guys offensively. And certainly Shireman was incredible tonight.
He was.
Kalkbrenner did some good things. I thought Jemai Mashak and Jordan Gainey did a phenomenal job on Trey Alexander. He was probably the one guy that didn't get going much at all. But it was Tennessee's team. Everybody stepped up on a night that Santiago Vescovi was out, on a night that Jonas Adu, who's been one of Tennessee's better offensive options this season, was not very good. Everybody else was huge for Tennessee. Dalton Knecht hit big shots. Tobe Awaka's physicality was huge down the stretch. Really, it took Tennessee to the finish line. Jemai Mashak was a huge part of locking up Trey Alexander. An elite, stat sheet stuffing game from him. I thought Josiah Jordan-James was great again. Kai Ziegler did his thing. Even Freddie DeLeon and Cam Carr came in and played a little bit in the first half.
Had a couple of moments.
Cam Carr, he only sees green lights.
There you go.
He saw one hit a big three when Creighton was kind of on a run late in the first half. So all that rambling to say, the fact that it was a true team win for Tennessee, I think, is what stands out the most.
Yeah, Jemai Mashak talked about it after the game. He really didn't even know that he would be starting until shoot-around earlier in the day. Now, maybe he had a little bit of an inkling towards that, that could happen with Santiago Vescovi missing practice, but he didn't fully know until that shoot-around before the game. I think you're right. I think you sort of emphasized Tennessee's bench in this game. Not that they stuffed the sheet with statistics or anything, but you look at where Tennessee's advantage was in this game. Creighton only has a six-man rotation. It's not a knock against them, just kind of how they're doing it. Tennessee had the depth going into this game, but those bench pieces, obviously Jemai Mashak inserted into the starting role, but what he was able to do tonight, it was really important for Tennessee. Jordan Gainey hits a couple of shots along the way, including a three-pointer. And what you said, Tobe Awaka just using his physicality and then closing the game down for Tennessee. I thought that all sort of combined together for a recipe for success.
Yeah, I thought Jordan Gainey was just great tonight. One of the best games he's played all season.
Sure.
Hits a couple threes.
Had a hustle play right here. That
awesome
was
hustle
huge
play.
In the first half.
Yeah, awesome hustle play. I thought he did a really good job on Alexander too when he was in the game. Was locked in defensively. Obviously, he hit the 2 threes, but he hit a shot in the mid-range. He got to a floater off a curl on an off-ball screen, scored. And he gave Tennessee some bench production, and it felt like any bench production offensively would be key. Because you felt like Tennessee would get bench production defensively on the glass. But for them to get it offensively, it was huge. Gainey was a big part of that. One of the big shots that I thought was stabilizing for Tennessee. Tennessee goes on, maybe this will be a transition. Tennessee goes on that big 18-0 run. Creighton starts chipping away, and it chipped away a bunch. And this didn't end the chipping away, but I thought maybe they got it to 8 or so in kind of Creighton's first push. Tennessee kind of had a bad possession of offense, and that's when Gainey hit one of his threes pretty contested late in the shot clock. I thought that was a huge shot. He was just really, really good.
Yeah, I want to talk about that 18-0 run and kind of just a couple more thoughts on the game as a whole. If you can sort of track with me where I'm going with this, it really felt like that first half, obviously a slugfest, trading punches back and forth, felt like that was really sort of a feeling out period for Tennessee. They understood how the game was flowing. They understood what Creighton was trying to do, both offensively and defensively. And then they shot out of the gates in the second half, and that looked like Tennessee basketball at its most dominant form. It looked like they really understood what was going on in the first half. They came out, they made the right tweaks and adjustments there in the second half, and it did lead to that big 18-0 run. I think there were a couple of timeouts maybe in the middle of it too, but there were just times throughout the game where it looked like Creighton, which is a team full of shooters at the guard position especially, they just looked hesitant a couple times. They passed up maybe some better looks than they ended up with on that certain possession, but Tennessee's defense, you could just tell, really affected them. And then their guard, what was his name? Stephen Ashworth said after the game, now he gave Tennessee's defense credit, especially in the first half. He said, hey, when we threw it in down low, a lot of what our game is to then kick it back out to the outside to those shooters on the perimeter. They said they had a really hard time doing that in the first half, just simply because of what Tennessee was able to do from the defensive side.
Yeah, Tennessee wasn't going to double. It didn't seem like they doubled really at all, and they were going to live with it. And, again, Kalkbrenner did some good things. It wasn't like he didn't score at all, but I thought a big play of the game. He caught the ball right down here. 3-4 minutes left. 12 feet, Tobe Awaka on him. Tobe Awaka had that arm bar. He wasn't strong enough to back down Tobe Awaka.
Right.
Most people aren't. He's a big guy. So that was big. And yeah, on the run, to me, it started with defense. Tennessee got some stops. They got some turnovers. They got out in transition. It was 8-0 and 2 and change, maybe 2-12. I have it in my 3 quick takeaways. Check it out, rucktopinsider.com.
Good plug.
Timeout Creighton. Tennessee comes back out, right back, 10-0 run, and maybe 2:25, another timeout Creighton. And I think Shireman hit a 3 out of that timeout that kind of settled Creighton, and then obviously Creighton got it to 3 a couple different times down the stretch. But that was huge, and the fact that Tennessee got out in transition, maybe the thing we haven't talked about much, Dalton Knecht, I thought he was great in that stretch. He scored a couple times in transition, and he made a couple big passes in transition. I mean, Rick Barnes has pleaded, at least to the media, he's told us about he's pleaded to Knecht to make the extra pass in transition at times. Don't get so, just tunnel vision on scoring. And he had a great one where he drew to defense, passed it to Jemiah Mashak for a layup. And then, I think really in that stretch, he scored or assisted on a bunch of those 18 points. I don't know exactly what it is. He was the key. And in a game where he had 5 assists, I thought it was one of his best passing, facilitating games of the season.
You mentioned Zakai Ziegler just there a second ago. Or maybe you didn't. I don't know. Maybe it's just
I don't think I did.
Okay, maybe it's just been in my mind because it's 1:21 in the morning. We're working here. Zakai Ziegler, let's go back. Tennessee's last 2 games, 80 minutes of game time on the court. Zakai Ziegler has been on the court for all 80 minutes of that action. It felt like that was probably going to be a thing that was going to happen tonight with Santiago Vescovi out.
Yeah,
but that's 2 games in a row. One thing that I do want to point to with Zakai and sort of encapsulating what Dalton Knecht and Josiah Jordan-James were also to do as well. You talked about it after that Texas game, right? Tennessee hit their free throws when they needed to most. Those were 3 guys shooting free throws at the end of the game for Tennessee: Dalton Knecht, Josiah Jordan-James, and Zakai Ziegler. And again, after all the amount that those 3 guys have played over the last couple games, last week or two, for them to knock down those shots obviously made Tennessee be able to breathe a little bit easier as time was winding down.
Yeah, and really, by Zakai standards, he wasn't great. And he missed a front end when Creighton first started fouling him. There's Tobe Awaka, wrecking ball, gets the rebound, gets it out to Josiah Jordan-James. James hits 2 free throws. So, yeah, I mean, Zakai was good tonight. I mean, he was just steady, good Zakai. He hit some shots. I think it was maybe 6 assists to 1 turnover. And the turnover he had was, Tennessee inbounding it under the basket, 4 seconds on the shot clock. He ends up traveling. Tennessee wasn't going to get a good shot. He was kind of forced to try to make something out of nothing. So it really wasn't even that bad of a turnover. He was just really solid, good on the defensive end. And one last thing I'll say about Knecht. Creighton made that run. Tennessee, a number of runs, kept pushing, right around the 3-4 minute mark. And I think it was really out of the under 4 timeout. Tennessee was getting good shots. They were struggling to hit shots. Dalton Knecht twice hit big 3-pointers, deep 3-pointers when Tennessee was only up by 3. I think that was as close as Creighton got it. That was huge. I mean, that's what we talked about all year. Dalton Knecht can be the difference for this team. He can make those shots when things are going stale for Tennessee. Here, the biggest stage yet, Sweet 16, he hits 2 massive shots that help Tennessee hold off Creighton.
You're right. That is what we said. A couple of smart guys right here. We said that all season.
And it was only us. Nobody else.
Nobody
nationally, no one locally, no one regionally.
God, we're good.
Yeah.
We really
it took a lot of smarts to figure out Dalton Knecht was a really good player and change things.
We said it. Go check the records. Let's see. One more quick thing. Dalton Knecht ends with a team-high 24 points. Zakai Ziegler, 18 points. Josiah Jordan-James, 17 points. You got anything on just Josiah Jordan-James and what he's been able to put together to help Tennessee in this tournament so far?
Yeah, I mean, he was great again tonight. I mean, he was guarding Shireman the whole game, and he certainly didn't lock him up. Shireman's a great player, but James hit some big shots. He rebounded well. He had a huge block on a Kalkbrenner layup there in the second half, kind of, I believe it was in the middle of that Tennessee run. I thought that was a huge play. He's just been so good, really, each of the last 2 games. If you're going to look in the NCAA tournament, who's been the best player for Tennessee through 3 games, I give my vote to Josiah Jordan-James.
Any other kind of final takeaways as we kind of wrap things up for here tonight? Again, Tennessee defeats Creighton, a rematch against Purdue coming up Sunday afternoon. But any other kind of final thoughts as we start to clean it all up?
I have one final thought, and it's something that I said on the podcast, on whenever we recorded that, I guess Wednesday.
We're so smart.
Is that I felt like the turnovers could be a big difference in this game. I didn't think rebounding, the way both teams rebounded, I didn't think either team was going to get a huge edge on offensive boards. Tennessee did have a couple big ones. I mentioned the Awaka free throws. Creighton does not force turnovers. They do a good job of taking care of the ball, but Tennessee's really good. Not an elite job, and Tennessee's good at forcing turnovers. It's not a huge number when you look at it. 9-4, 9 turnovers for Creighton, 4 for Tennessee. Tennessee turned it into 10 points. Creighton turned it into 0 points. It was a big part of that 18-0 run. I felt like that was a huge, huge part of the game.
Absolutely. Again, Tennessee will take on Purdue now in the Elite Eight coming up on Sunday afternoon, 2:20 p.m. Eastern time. Thank goodness for an afternoon game. Finally, Tennessee's going to get the early game on that day. So a lot to get to between now and then. Obviously, we will be right here in the Motor City to get you ready for that game. We will break down the winning over Creighton. We will preview the game against Purdue. A lot of stuff coming to you soon. Head over to RockyTopInsider.com to find all that out. Is that going to wrap us up?
That's all I got.
Okay, this is Ryan Shumpert. I'm Rick Butler. Again, 2-seed Tennessee defeats 3-seed Creighton by a score of 82-75 right here in the Sweet 16 of the Midwest Regional. Tennessee will take on Purdue this Sunday. Stay tuned to Rocky Top Insider for it all. You've been listening to the RTI postgame show.